Boys, what's good? It's Herm. We're here with, I believe, the fourth mock draft of this year, the first one post lottery. Today, Mother's Day, was the official draft lottery, and we have a surprise number one with the Atlanta Hawks getting the first overall pick. And I believe for the third year in a row, the Pistons have had the best odds and ended up at fifth, which is insane. It's ridiculous. There are people out there saying it's rigged against Detroit. I don't really know if they would do that. But we have the order thanks to the ping pong balls. We know what teams will be picking where. We'll do the entire first round, but let's not waste any time. Let's just get into it, and let's start off with number one. And with the first overall pick, the Atlanta Hawks are going to select center / power forward Alex Sarr out of the NBL, currently playing with the Perth Wildcats, is from France himself natively, 19 years old, 7'1". When you look at the Hawks, there's a ton of stuff up in the air. Trae and Dejounte both in trade rumors, but assuming they keep one, they're going to have a really good guard. They're going to have a great forward in Jalen Johnson, but I think an upgrade at the center spot makes a lot of sense. I think it's almost a lock that if the Hawks stay at number one, they'll pick Alex Sarr. It just makes the most sense of anything in this draft, I think. Is a really good lob threat for a player like Trae, is working on spacing as well, but that's not his go-to right now. Capella getting a little older, been there for a while, obviously not the long-term option. And Onyeka Okongwu hasn't been quite the player I think maybe Atlanta expected, so getting an upgrade in Alex Sarr, a really high potential big who can run the floor, who is attempting to space and hit threes. I really like the upside here for Atlanta. They could trade the pick. That's something that is in play, but if they keep it, I think it's Sarr at number one. At number two, we have the Washington Wizards picking here, and they could go a ton of places. They could go big as well, maybe take Donovan Clingan out of UConn, but I have them taking point guard Stephon Castle, also out of UConn. They were 29th in defensive rating last season, so why not get a lockdown defensive guard in Stephon Castle, who can pass a little bit. Sure, he's not a perfect playmaker, but as of right now, Tyus Jones is still on the team, so you could get a little bit of both, get a mixture in there. Maybe Castle starts, maybe Jones starts, maybe they both start, but getting a defensive guard, one of the best defensive guards over the past few years in the draft, I would say, I think makes a ton of sense. He's locked down. We saw it in the tournament. Him and Tristan Newton were putting other teams' best players in torture chambers. Stephon Castle was elite as a lockdown guy, and his shooting got better as the season progressed. 26% from three, obviously not good enough, but I think it can get better. Has been a good free throw shooter. His free throw shooting over the second half of the year was aggressively better than it was early on, and I think Castle, just with the defensive, it's not even upside, the defensive ability right now is worth a shot at two. They need guard play. Tyus Jones, not the long-term point guard there, so getting Castle as your point guard of the future, I think makes the most sense here for Washington at number two. Moving into number three, we have the Houston Rockets, another winner of the draft. They shoot up like this via the Nets pick, and despite being much better this year than they had been the past few, they still get a top four pick, and they get Donovan Clingan center. They have Alperen Sengun as their starting center, but I think their starting lineup's pretty good, with Fred VanVleet, Jalen Green, Dylan Brooks, Jabari Smith Jr., and Alperen Sengun. Amen Thompson, Cam Whitmore, Tari Eason are all kind of pining for a starting spot as well. So getting a really good defensive backup center, I think makes a ton of sense. Jock Landale, not the long-term backup center. We'll see what happens with Steven Adams. But getting a good rim protecting backup in Clingan to kind of, I wouldn't say contradict, but complement what you're getting from Sengun. They're not going to play together, but Sengun is such a good offensive center. Having a really good defensive center as well, I think makes a lot of sense. 4 blocks per 36, really efficient, 64% from the field. I think Walker Kessler plus is what I would say of Donovan Clingan. and was kind of limited in his minutes, just over 20 minutes a game, but per 36, 21 and 12. I think there's more upside here than people might think, and Walker Kessler is a really good player, but I think Clingan can be better. I think the rim protecting is special, and I think the Rockets, as a team that doesn't have a lot of holes in their roster, getting a elite defensive center to be behind Şengün, I think makes a lot of sense for what the roster needs. At number 4, we have the San Antonio Spurs. I have them taking point guard Nikola Topic out of the Serbian League, the Adriatic League, I believe it's called. Really impressive score at 19 per 36. You don't often see high-level scoring in these foreign leagues. Often it's more projection than reality, but he's a good scorer in this league right now. 52% from the field, decent from 3, and 7 assists per game as well. I think they need a point guard. I think that's pretty obvious. Trae Jones, solid, but not really an NBA starter, I wouldn't say. The Sohan at point guard experiment was a failure. That's obviously not the long-term option. They have some good players on the wings. Vassell, Keldon Johnson, who's more of a power forward, and obviously Wemby is locking it down at the center. So getting a guard who could be the pick and roll guy with Wemby makes a lot of sense. And Topic has been really good since returning from injury. And I think if you're looking at potential, Topic might be the highest potential in this draft class as a scorer. And he doesn't have to be the best player on the team because they have Wemby, but I think Topic is a nice complement for Wemby and the Spurs. At number 5, I have the Detroit Pistons here. They are the 5th pick. I can't believe it. I actually feel bad for the Pistons getting the 5th pick again. Just feels brutal for how bad they were this season. I believe 14 wins on the year, and they get the number 5 pick is devastating. But what do they need more than anything else? They need shooting. I thought about just taking scoring, maybe a guy like Rob Dillingham or Ron Holland, but I focus more on the shooting aspect, and I think Cody makes more sense, especially as a positional fit, because if they took Dillingham, it's just more of a contrast with guys like Cade and Jaden Ivey, but Cody, I think, makes more sense as a wing that they can fit in and shoot the ball. 55% from the field, 41.5% from 3 this season at Colorado, 15 points per 36 as well as 4 rebounds, a solid 6'8" as well, could legitimately play power forward if you wanted to. No more Isaiah Stewart at power forward. Let's get rid of those lineups as soon as possible and get a real shooting power forward, a stretch 4 in Cody Williams, who's also a really solid defender, the brother of Jalen Williams, J-Dub on the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't think he's going to be as good as J-Dub, but I think as a complementary shooter defender makes a lot of sense for what Detroit has already built up. Despite the record this year, I do like some of their players, namely Cade, Ivey, and Jalen Duren are really good foundational pieces. Ausar Thompson had a lot of flashes as a rookie as well, and I think Cody Williams could just slide right in, not mess anything up, and just boost the guys around him because of the spacing that he would provide. At number 6, we have the Charlotte Hornets picking here. I have them taking point guard Rob Dillingham out of Kentucky, getting a backcourt mate for LaMelo Ball, but also kind of an insurance option for LaMelo, because the tough part with Melo right now is that he's always injured. It feels like LaMelo's never on the floor. He's playing like 30 games a season, so you need more options. You need more guard play, and even if LaMelo's there, I don't think it's necessarily a bad fit, because you could play Miller at the 3, you could move Bridges to the 4, and still have Mark Williams at the 5. I think Mark Williams is one of the most core players here. Brandon Miller is probably the biggest foundational piece moving forward, and I assume that they'll bring Miles Bridges back. So a guard slash wing feels like the most logical option here, and I'm going to take Dillingham. 23.5 points per 36, electric scorer, and he provides good spacing alongside the guys they already have. Miller's a good shooter, LaMelo's been a good shooter, Bridges is kind of and Mark Williams a non-spacing big. So getting more shooting in there I think makes sense. Was really efficient in his 1 year at Kentucky, 6 assists as well, can play make for others, and I just think he's a a very high level talent as well as a natural fit on this Hornets team. So he goes at number 6. At number 7, I have the Portland Trailblazers taking Matas Buzelis out of the G League Ignite. I wouldn't be shocked if they traded the pick just because of a lot of the talent they already have, but a lot of it is focused on guards with Anthony Simon, Shaden Sharp, Scoot Henderson, and then you have DeAndre Ayton as probably your big moving forward. But what they need more of is wings. 3s and 4s. So I've been taking Buzelis, 16 points per 36, 7.7 rebounds, 2.3 blocks, 6'10", a big small forward, can do just about everything except shoot the ball. His shooting at this point is not fantastic, but Simons is a good shooter. Sharp, I think, will be a good shooter. Jeremy Grant's a good shooter. They have shooters on the roster, so it's not the biggest problem that he can't do it, and he just complements other guys. I don't think Buzelis is going to be a star, but I think he's going to be a very high-end role player, and for the Blazers, I think that makes sense with how the lineup currently looks. At number 8, the San Antonio Spurs are here. This pick coming from the Raptors, which is top 6 protected, falls to 8, so the Spurs get it. And I have them taking Zachary Risache out of France. Small forward. His shooting really declined over the past few weeks. I believe it is almost around 40% now. I should have updated it, but the shooting just has not kept up over the second half of the season. Over the past couple months, the three-point shot has kind of plummeted, and that was the biggest selling point about Risache, was the three-point shooting. It hasn't been there as much, but I like the idea of getting the Spurs a French teammate for Wemby, someone he's familiar with, and at this point, they already got a really good player at 4, and you probably can sell yourself in the idea that the first half shooting is what you're getting, and if it is, then that makes this a great pick, and even if it's not, it's going to make your young star happy, so why not take Risache at number 8? If I was doing a big board, I'd probably rank him more around 12 to 15, but I think because it's the Spurs, 8 is an okay spot for Risache to go. At number 9, I have the Memphis Grizzlies taking Reed Shepherd, guard out of Kentucky. The biggest sniper in college basketball this season, maybe the best freshman in all of college basketball. 52% from 3 is absurd on, I believe, over 4 attempts a game. Really solid. Over 3 steals per 36 as well. 15.5 points, 5.1 rebounds, 5.6 assists. I think 6'3" is a little generous. I might be closer to 6'1". Definitely undersized, but not a bad defender and an elite floor spacer. They already have their top 3 guys, obviously, in Ja, Desmond Bane, and Jaren Jackson Jr. You have Marcus Smart. On a team with Ja and Marcus Smart, I think you want some more three-point shooting. Gigi Jackson is going to be a good young piece as well, but I think shooting is a need for the Grizzlies, so why not capitalize on a player who's slipped a little bit and take Reed Shepherd here at number 9. At number 10, the Utah Jazz are picking, and now them taking Ron Holland, forward out of the G League Ignite. They have Lauri Markkanen, they have Walker Kessler. Is John Collins the long-term option at the 4? I don't think so. But either way, if you're going to start Lowry at the 4 or keep him at the 3, I think getting another forward in there who can really score makes a lot of sense. 22 points per 36, 7.5 rebounds, 3.3 assists. Can't really shoot the ball, but when you have a big like Lowry who can shoot it the way that he does, I think it's not as huge of a concern. And the scoring with Holland is legit. Sexton's really good at the guard spot, so is Keontae George. So a lot of the spots on this Jazz team are kind of filled out. Another pick, I wouldn't be surprised if the Jazz traded it, because I think they're really going to try to make a playoff push next season. I think they've done a couple seasons of being kind of mediocre, and they want to take that next leap. I don't think Danny Ainge wants to be mediocre forever. I think he wants to make an aggressive push. So Ron Holland is a good scoring piece, but I wouldn't be shocked if they traded it either. At number 11, I have the Chicago Bulls going small forward Dalton Connect out of Tennessee. Was probably the best scorer in the nation last season. Kind of came out of nowhere, transferred to Tennessee, and in this one season there, I believe he was the runner-up for the National Player of the Year. 23 years old, 6'6", 25 points per 36, 5.9 rebounds, 46% from the field, and 39% from deep. The team has Kobe White. They have Ayo Dosunmu. Who knows if DeMar will come back? Not sure about it. I don't think they're locked in at center either with Nikola Vucevic, but the guards are locked up, and I think just base value wise, Connect is the best pick here and has the highest upside as a scoring player. Could be a 20 point per game guy in the NBA someday, so why not take a shot on him here at 11? The scoring is legit, the shooting is legit. I really like Connect, and I like his fit on Chicago as well. At number 12, I have the Oklahoma City Thunder selecting small forward Tijane Salawan out of France. This is a team that is really well built already, built around SGA, Chet, and J-Dub, but they already have a ton of guys, so why not take a risk, take a flyer on kind of more of a developmental guy, more of a higher risk player. It feels kind of like the Ousmane Dieng pick, which I wouldn't say is necessarily a fail yet, but hasn't worked out maybe like you'd expected. But Salawan at 6'9", just 18 years old, can really defend at a high level. 15 points per 36 as well, not a bad score, but his best ability is going to be his ability to guard the 1 through 4, maybe even guard 5s occasionally. They have a bunch of versatile defenders already. Why not throw another one in there and just try to push and make yourself the best defensive team in the league today? At number 13, I have the Sacramento Kings taking Jacoby Walter out of Baylor. This is kind of a Malik Monk replacement, I guess is what you could call it, who is probably likely to leave in free agency this offseason, so that leaves a big hole on the wing. Why not fill it with Jacoby Walter, who's a really good offensive talent? 16 points per 36, 4.9 rebounds. Early on in the year was shooting like 40% from deep. It dropped over the course of the season, kind of like Reece Shea, but with the Kings, maybe you say, hey, I think the shooting is legit, but even if it isn't, his ability to create for himself is really solid. The Kings could go with another big to pair with Sabonis, because sometimes against the bigger guys he struggles, but right now I think getting a wing score makes the most sense because of Monk's impending free agency. At 14, I have the Portland Trailblazers taking center Kel'el Ware out of Indiana. Spent the 1 year at Oregon, then his second year at Indiana. 20 years old still, despite being in college for 2 years. 7 feet tall, 18 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks per 36, as well as more of a developed jumper at 42.5% from 3. I think Ware is one of the more interesting prospects in this draft class, as he kind of does a little bit of everything for a big man. Feels like a modern big and really developed his game in his 1 season at Indiana, but DeAndre Ayton is probably the guy at center, but this is kind of a bet against the health of Robert Williams. Is he going to be healthy? And is Ayton really legit as the guy, as the big man in Portland? Who knows? They could package both the picks together and try to get somebody else, but we'll see what Portland does. I think they're one of the bigger wild cards in this draft. At 15, the Miami Heat are on the board. We already knew these picks essentially before the lottery because the regular season was over, but the Heat are here at 15, and I have them taking point guard Devin Carter out of Providence. Just feels like a Heat culture guy, really tenacious, special defender, and just works really hard. 20 points per 36 this season for Providence, 8.8 rebounds, 3.7 assists, and 1.8 steals. Again, really just a pesky defender. They did get DeLon right, but getting another one wouldn't be bad either. Kind of fits that Kendrick Nunn, Gabe Vincent archetype of a point guard that the Heat seem to like, so why not get one here at 15? At 16, the Sixers are on the clock, and I have them taking power forward Tyler Smith out of the Ignite program. 19 years old, 6'11", and his per 36 numbers are really good. 22 points per 36, 8 rebounds, 1.5 blocks. Pretty solid overall efficiency at about 48% from the field. The three-point shooting isn't fantastic, but hit over a 3 per game. He's projecting as a good NBA shooter, and with Tobias Harris almost definitely not coming back, getting a wing, an athletic one, I think would be a solid pairing next to Embiid and the guys that they have. At 17, the New Orleans Pelicans are picking, and they still need a point guard. They still don't really have one. They're playing McCollum at point guard. I still don't love that they're doing that. So why not take one that was initially projected to be the number 1 pick? Collier was the number 1 pick in my initial mock draft this season. Kind of struggled with injuries more than anything else at USC. The scoring was still there. 19 points per 36, 5 assists, 49% from the field, and the three-point shooting not great at 34, but overall 49 is really solid, especially when the three-point shooting is dragging that down. So really efficient 2-point player right now, explosive, can get to the rim, is a little turnover prone, but I still think he's a good passer, and just a much better talent than the 17th talent in this class. So why not take a shot on him if you're New Orleans? At 18, I have the Orlando Magic taking Jared McCain, kind of a combo guard, can play both, out of Duke. 20 years old, can really shoot the thing, 41.2% from 3, had a couple of really explosive three-point shooting games in the tournament. In the Magic, as we saw in the playoffs, they did go to 7 in the first round, ended up losing, and it's because of those cold offensive stretches. They don't have any shooting. Getting a shooter in there, I think Monk and Klay Thompson will be guys that they eye this offseason, but they wouldn't know that yet at this point, so why not get a shooter in there with Jared McCain? I think makes a lot of sense. They just need more spacing, and McCain can provide that. At 19, I have the Toronto Raptors going with small forward Jalen Tyson out of Cal. Kind of feels like the best player available at this point to me. Really good shot creator for himself. The Raptors don't have a ton of guys I'd say that they're building around. It kind of feels like just Scotty Barnes and Grady Dick at this point. I like Gary Trent Jr. personally, but I don't know if they view him as a piece of the core. So you're looking for guys that can create for themselves, get their own shots, maybe be more than what they're drafted to be. 21 points per 36 for Tyson, 7 rebounds and 3.6 assists, 36% from 3. I think it's going to be better than that in the NBA. A 6'7" wing that can play both ways, and I just like the idea of Tyson here at 19. They need a initiator, a creator, and Tyson can do that for Toronto. At number 20, I have the Cavs going Tristan da Silva, who will be one of the best role players in this draft class, just super complimentary. Can play defense, can shoot the ball, can rebound, and the Cavs need more shooting. They wouldn't mind more defense, and rebounding would be solid for them as well. 6'9", 17 points, 5.5 rebounds, and then 49% from the field is super efficient, and nearly 40% from deep as well. They got some more shooters. Georges Niang, Sam Merrill was great for them this year. The Heat guy, Max Strus, Karis LeVert. Isaac Okoro's been better, but you can never have too much shooting, and Da Silva just feels like a really natural, complementary player. If you're going to only play one big, I think Da Silva makes a lot of sense as a power forward alongside one of the bigs. At number 21, we have the Pelicans on the clock again, and I just saw a report the other day that it feels like Jonas Valanciunas is unlikely to be back for the Pelicans next season, so why not get a young center to replace him? And Yves Missi out of Baylor, the second Baylor player off the board behind his teammate Jacoby Walter, 19 years old, 6'11", really good rim protector at 2.5 blocks per 36, efficient at over 61%, 17 points, is never going to be a star, but feels like a solid big. Maybe could be a Clint Capella type at the NBA level, maybe even a Clint Capella light, but they just need more bigs, and why not take a shot here on Missi, who was a high recruit coming out of high school. At 22, we have the Phoenix Suns. I've been taking point guard Tyler Kolek out of Marquette. We saw throughout the playoffs they still need an initiator. I'm still of the camp that they need a more natural point guard. They don't have one. They're playing Booker and Beal at the point. I just don't like it. I don't think it's the move. So getting a player who can pass and can shoot, isn't going to be a ball hog, can space off the ball, create for others with the ball at 8.5 assists per 36, 39% from 3. Feels like a perfect role-playing point guard for the Suns. Is not going to try to take shots away from the guys they already have, is going to create for them, and is going to shoot the ball well when off of it. I like it a lot. I think it makes the most sense for Phoenix at 22. The Bucks are picking at 23. I've been taking center Zach Edey out of Purdue, the best player in college for each of the last 2 seasons. at least one National Player of the Year. So according to that, he has been. But out of Purdue, 22 years old, 7'4", is a massive player. 28 points per 36, 13.9 rebounds, 62.5% from the field, and 2.5 blocks per 36 as well. If you watch him in the tournament, it felt like he was getting 30 or 40 every night. He was just such a dominant force. And Brook Lopez isn't going to play forever. Brook Lopez is kind of aging out of a super impactful part of his career. Was great, kind of had a late career resurgence with the Bucks, finishing runner-up for Defensive Player of the Year last year, and then kind of being a slightly worse version of that this year. So getting a player, a massive one, who could potentially try to fill the shoes of Brook Lopez, why not? Good rim protector, a front court of 7'4" Zach Edey and 7' Giannis Antetokounmpo. I'm all for that. I really like the fit. I had him much higher last time. I believe the Thunder at 12, but I had the Thunder going Salawan, and there aren't a lot of fits outside of that, so it slips a bit, and I think kind of the euphoria over the tournament has worn off a little bit, so he is probably going to go in this 20 range in this draft class. At 24, I have the Knicks going Terrence Shannon Jr. out of Illinois. The Knicks are another team that kind of has offensive challenging stretches. They are really good defensively, but why not get an elite scorer? 24.5 points per 36 for Terrence Shannon Jr. Has been one of the best scorers in the country for a long time now. 47.5% from the field, an efficient score at that as well. I think can play off ball of Brunson and kind of be a nice scoring player off the bench. He's not going to start over DiVincenzo or Josh Hart. I don't even think he's going to be better than McBride, but I do think he's going to be a solid scoring type off the bench. Probably won't provide a lot else, but in those lulls of offense, Shannon would make sense. They're on the board again here at 25, back-to-back picks for the Knicks, and I'm taking shooting guard Keyshawn George out of Miami. 20 years old, but 6'8", can defend positions 1 through 4, shot 41% from 3 as well. Feels like a Tom Thibodeau player, is a lanky, good defender who can shoot the ball. Is kind of a bigger version of Josh Hart. Isn't going to be that level of a rebounder or probably a defender, but he's a good defender. And I think could be a nice complimentary guy off the bench for New York. At 26, the Wizards back up on the clock here. I had them go point guard with their first pick, but they really have no bigs right now. They have Marvin Bagley and then kind of a bunch of nobodies. Tristan Vukcevic. But why not get a talented big here in Deron Holmes? He can space the floor, he can score, he can block shots, he can rebound. He does a lot of everything. I think he's a lot better than 26. I think he's one of the better centers in this class. Deron Holmes been underrated at Dayton for years. He was there for 3 years, I believe, despite being 21. Pretty young for the amount of experience he has, and could be a contributor right away. A little undersized, but plays bigger than he actually is. 6'10", 23 points per 36, 9.5 rebounds, 2.5 blocks, 39% from 3. I love Deron Holmes as a player, and I think it's a ton of value here for Washington at 26. At 27, the Minnesota Timberwolves here, after a great season, they're in the second round right now, battling with the Denver Nuggets. But I still think backup point guard is kind of a problem. Monte Morris is there. Jordan McLaughlin is there, but why not get a guy with a little more upside, a really good scoring type? The defense is elite. The offense, like some other teams we've mentioned, sometimes struggles a little bit, especially with the bench unit. So why not get a good scoring guard in there? I don't think Carrington's going to be a good defensive player necessarily. He has the wingspan to be if he wants to be, but he's going to be a good offensive player. I can almost guarantee it. Was kind of shot out of a cannon early in the year for Pitt. A lot of people wondered how far he might shoot up draft boards, but ends up in this kind of late first round, which is still way better than he was as a recruit. Definitely improved his stock at Pitt this year. But 15 points per 36, nearly 6 assists and 4.5 rebounds. I like Bub Carrington. Going to be a good player. The Timberwolves don't have a lot of holes. They're pretty deep, but I think this is the most natural position of need for Minnesota. At 28, the Denver Nuggets picking here. They haven't had a good backup center essentially any of their time with the current roster. Right now, I guess it's Zeke Naji, maybe DeAndre Jordan. When we get in the playoffs, they always play Aaron Gordon as a backup 5, but why not try to get a decent backup 5? Flip was initially viewed as a lottery pick, but the way he got kind of pushed around in the tournament really kind of worried me, kind of scared me off a little bit. But I still think he's a first-round talent, so that's why I'll take him here at 28. 7 feet tall, 20 points, 10 rebounds, 2 blocks. The 51% isn't great, but he does try to space it a little bit, a little mid-range, a little three-point, and that hurts his percentages a little bit. So that's why what they are. But backup center is kind of a need for Denver. At 29, I have the Utah Jazz taking shooting guard Johnny Furphy out of Kansas, also out of Australia. But I think if you're Utah, why not take an upside pick here? They do have some good guards already, but why not get a reserve guard who's really athletic, had some great highlight dunks this season, and picked it up over the second half of the year. 13.5 points per 36, 8 rebounds, and nearly 47% from the field. I think he's going to be a good defender and a complementary offensive one, and could develop to be a lot better than where he's getting selected. So why not take a shot if you're a team like Utah? And at number 30, the last pick of the first round and of this mock draft, we have the Boston Celtics, and I'm taking power forward / center Ulrich Chomchi out of NBA Academy Africa. Has been really good over there, has a lot of scouts talking about what he could be, and I think is kind of untapped potential in what his potential is. Al Horford is getting much older. I don't know how long he'll be able to play for, so getting another backup center makes a lot of sense. On top of that, Porzingis is a little injury prone, so why not get another 5 in there? They got Xavier Tillman, they have Luke Cornett. I think Chomchi projects as someone who could be better than both of them. 16 points, 11 rebounds per 36, 4 assists, 3.2 blocks, 1.6 steals. Does a little bit of everything on both ends. A really unique player, and I really like his fit on Boston. I've mocked it 2 or 3 times now, and I just really like the fit here for the Celtics. So why not get another 5? Makes a ton of sense. But that'll do it for this mock draft. If you enjoyed it, give it a like. Think about subscribing. I'm on the road to 14,000 subscribers. So if you enjoyed, think about subscribing. I recommend the video to friends, whatever. But hopefully you enjoyed. Let me know if you agreed with the picks, disagreed with the picks, what you liked, what you didn't like. Drop it in the comments below. But thanks for watching. I'm Herm. Have a good one.